The private academy's courtyard usually sounded like polished chaos at the end of the day, laughter ricocheting off limestone walls, backpacks thudding to the ground, someone's earbuds leaking bass, but that afternoon the noise sharpened into something brittle. Noah Sterling stood near the bike racks, fingers worrying the strap of his backpack, eyes flicking from face to face as if he were counting exits. His right leg, braced from knee to ankle, dragged just enough to catch the curb when he shifted his weight. He stopped moving altogether after that, as if stillness might make him invisible. "Say it again," one of the boys said, a smirk carved into his mouth. He was tall, with the easy arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. "Say the word." Noah opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Words came differently for him when pressure climbed, his brain sprinted ahead while his mouth stumbled to keep up. I didn't mean." Another boy snorted, mimicking the cadence, turning it into a cruel sing-song. The third boy leaned against the rack, arms crossed, enjoying the show like it was a street performance. A couple of kids slowed as they passed, eyes darting, then quickened their steps. Someone laughed nervously. No one intervened. Across the courtyard, Aaliyah Brooks paused halfway down the steps of the music building. Her violin case tugged at her shoulder, the worn strap biting into the muscle where it always did. She'd learned to move through places like this with her chin up and her head down at the same time, present but careful, new girl energy humming under her skin. She had clocked the expensive backpacks, the polished shoes, the way the boys' voices cut. She noticed Noah's brace last, not because it was hidden, but because she'd trained herself not to lead with it. What she saw first was the way he folded inward. Her stomach tightened. She looked around, waiting for an adult, a prefect, anyone. Nothing. The courtyard felt like a stage with the spotlight fixed on the wrong thing. "Hey," she said, stepping forward before doubt could take hold. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "That's enough." The boys turned, surprised, their attention snapping to her like rubber bands. One of them laughed. "Who are you?" "Someone who's telling you to back up," Aaliyah said. She planted herself between them and Noah without thinking about it, her feet finding a wide, balanced stance she'd learned from years of orchestra rehearsals, grounded, ready. She could feel Noah's breath quicken behind her, could sense the heat of the boy's irritation in front of her. "Mind your business," the tall one said, stepping closer, invading her space. "It is my business," she replied. She kept her hands loose at her sides, palms open. "Bullying isn't a sport. Try practicing something else." The third boy scoffed. "What are you gonna do, call your mom?" Aaliyah smiled, small and sharp. "I'll call the office. And the coaches. And your parents. And I won't stop talking." She tilted her head. "I'm very good at talking." Behind the tinted windows of a black sedan idling across the street, Marcus Sterling watched the scene unfold with a sickening slowness. He had arrived early, a rare pocket of time carved out between calls, hoping to surprise Noah with frozen yogurt from the place he liked. He recognized the posture of his son instantly, the way Noah's shoulders rose toward his ears, the telltale stillness that meant overload. Marcus's hand tightened around the steering wheel. He had learned, painfully, that charging in could make things worse. He watched for the right moment. He hadn't expected the girl. He took in her scuffed sneakers, the violin case, the way she didn't flinch when the boy stepped close. He watched the boys' bravado wobble, watched them glance at each other, recalibrating. Power shifted in subtle ways. "Whatever," the tall boy muttered, taking a step back. "Freaks stick together." "Keep walking," Aaliyah said quietly, eyes locked on his. "You're late for something." The boys peeled away, their laughter forced now, brittle. They scattered into the noise of the courtyard, disappearing into the stream of students. The air felt different once they were gone, like a held breath finally released. Aaliyah turned. Noah was staring at her, eyes wide, chest heaving. She softened instantly, the sharp edges of her voice dissolving. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, then shook his head, then nodded again. Thank you," he managed, the words tripping but earnest. She smiled, warm and unguarded. "Anytime." She glanced at his brace, then back to his face. "You want to walk together?" "They usually don't try again if you're not alone." Noah nodded, relief flickering across his features. They fell into step, her pace matching his without comment. She adjusted her stride so his brace wouldn't snag again, an unconscious accommodation born of empathy rather than instruction. Across the street, Marcus exhaled for the first time in what felt like minutes. He stayed in the car, resisting the urge to rush over and make a scene. He watched Noah straighten just a little as he walked beside the girl. He watched the way she angled her body subtly, a shield without being obvious. Something in Marcus's chest loosened and tightened all at once. Aaliyah walked Noah to the front gate, chatting lightly about the music building, about how the acoustics in the practice rooms were better if you stood near the window. She didn't ask what had happened. She didn't ask why. She treated him like a person first. My dad sometimes picks me up, Noah said, glancing around. Mine's working late, Aaliyah replied. I take the bus. She shifted her violin case. See you tomorrow. Noah smiled, small but real. Why yeah. As Aaliyah turned toward the bus stop, Marcus stepped out of the sedan at last, the cool air hitting his face. He approached Noah slowly, careful not to startle him. Hey, buddy, he said, keeping his voice light. Ready for yogurt? Noah nodded, then looked back toward the gate where Aaliyah had disappeared into the crowd. She helped. I saw, Marcus said, and meant more than Noah could hear yet. They drove away, the courtyard shrinking in the rearview mirror. Marcus's phone buzzed with a dozen missed calls. He ignored them. His mind replayed the scene again and again, the boy's laughter, his son's stillness, the girl's courage. He felt the familiar anger at a world that could be so casually cruel, braided now with something steadier. Resolve. Tomorrow, he promised himself, would not be the same. By mid-morning the rumor had already outrun the bell. Students whispered in hallways, teachers exchanged looks that tried to be neutral and failed, and the auditorium doors stood open as if the building itself were holding its breath. Aaliyah Brooks slipped into a seat near the back with her violin balanced across her knees, the polished wood cool under her fingers. She had slept badly. Every version of yesterday replayed in her head overnight, the moment she stepped forward, the way the boys' faces changed, the possibility that she'd crossed some invisible line she didn't know existed yet. Private academies had lines like that. She'd learned to feel for them the way you felt for the edge of a curb in the dark. Noah Sterling sat in the front row with his aide, hands folded, eyes darting to the side doors whenever they creaked. He didn't know why everyone had been summoned either. His stomach churned. He was good with routines. Assemblies that appeared out of nowhere did not qualify. The headmaster cleared his throat at the podium. The sound boomed through the auditorium, slicing through the murmurs. Thank you for coming on such short notice, he said, offering a thin smile. We have a guest this morning. The side doors opened. Marcus Sterling walked onto the stage. A wave of recognition rippled through the room. Gasps popped like sparks. Someone dropped a phone. Teachers straightened instinctively, as if posture might be graded. Marcus didn't wait for the applause that tried to start and then died under the headmaster's raised hand. He stood with his hands loosely clasped, surveying the room with a calm that carried weight. My name is Marcus Sterling, he began, voice steady, unamplified but somehow filling the space. Most of you know that already. A faint, humorless smile tugged at his mouth. I'm here because of something that happened yesterday on this campus. The air tightened. Aaliyah's pulse thudded in her ears. She shifted the violin case, her fingers suddenly clammy. Yesterday, Marcus continued, my son was targeted. He was mocked for the way he moves and the way he speaks. A murmur swept the room. He held up a hand, not in anger but in control. I won't name names. That's not why I'm here. Noah stared at the stage, cheeks burning. He felt exposed and strangely protected at the same time. Marcus turned his gaze outward, as if addressing each student individually. What matters is what happened next. Someone intervened. She didn't know who my son was. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't film it. She stood between cruelty and a kid who needed space to breathe. Aaliyah felt heat flood her face. Her instinct was to sink lower in her seat, to become smaller. The instinct lost. Aaliyah Brooks, Marcus said, turning toward the back of the auditorium. Would you join me? For a heartbeat, the room seemed to tilt. Aaliyah stood on legs that felt borrowed, the aisle stretching longer than it should have. Whispers followed her like wind. She walked, chin up because her grandmother's voice lived in her bones, stand straight when the room is watching. She climbed the steps and stopped a respectful distance from Marcus, eyes forward. He nodded to her, a simple acknowledgement that steadied her more than applause would have. You did something yesterday that shouldn't be rare, he said. But it is. And that's a problem we can fix. He gestured to the headmaster, who stepped forward with a folder. Marcus took it and handed it to Aaliyah. Inside is a renewal of your scholarship, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. Expanded. Full tuition. A stipend for your music studies. And an invitation. Aaliyah opened the folder with careful hands. Words swam, then sharpened. Her breath caught. Starting today, Marcus went on, this school will launch a peer advocate program. Students trained to step in, to de-escalate, to make inclusion visible. Aaliyah will serve as the inaugural student director, if she accepts. The silence that followed was deep and electric. Then applause rose, hesitant at first, then swelling until it filled the room, ricocheting off the walls. Aaliyah blinked hard. She closed the folder, pressing it to her chest like an anchor. Marcus turned to the front row and knelt beside Noah, lowering himself until they were eye level. The auditorium held its breath again. You don't need saving, he said gently. But you deserve allies. We're going to make sure you have them. Noah's smile broke wide, unguarded. He nodded, the knot in his stomach loosening. When the assembly ended, the room buzzed like a hive. Students clustered, voices tumbling over one another. Some looked thoughtful. Some looked chastened. The boys from yesterday hovered near the back, eyes down, the weight of the moment settling in ways consequences rarely did. Aaliyah stepped off the stage, legs shaky now that the adrenaline ebbed. Marcus waited near the curtains. You okay? He asked, his tone more human than Billionaire. She laughed, a breathy sound. I think so, sir. Mr. Sterling, I didn't do it for all this. I know, he said simply. That's why it had to be you. She nodded, swallowing. I'll do my best. I expect nothing less, he replied, and for the first time, he smiled. In the days that followed, the school shifted. Not all at once. Change never did, but the peer advocate program took root. Training sessions filled the library after school. Posters went up, designed by students, not administrators. Hallway energy softened at the edges. Noah walked a little taller. He still had hard days. He always would, but now there were names he could call, faces that turned toward him instead of away. And Aaliyah, she practiced in the music building with a new confidence, the stipend buying her time she hadn't known she was missing. When she stepped into spaces, she carried the quiet knowledge that one moment of courage could ripple outward, touching lives she'd never fully see. On a Thursday afternoon, as the courtyard hummed with the familiar noise of dismissal, Aaliyah crossed paths with the boys who had started it all. They hesitated. One of them cleared his throat. Hey, he said, awkward. About before. Aaliyah met his eyes, then nodded once. Do better, she said. They did. Not perfectly, but enough. From across the street, Marcus Sterling watched students spill into the world, the black sedan idling like it had before. This time, his chest felt lighter. He knew the shock would fade. Headlines would move on, but something else would remain, the simple, stubborn truth that when one person stands up, others learn how.